And it says that we are live. So, this is the SEO show, guys. Thank you for coming in. It is Friday, April 10th. I'm Frank Schwartz. That is Andreas Tobar. How are you doing,
everybody.
man?
Doing
Mr. WordPress, Mr. Adsense, the Sherpa of Serp-Shaker. There's a ton of things. Probably one of the most helpful guys that I've run across when it comes to stupid mistakes. I'm sorry, my microphone just decided to take a jump off of the table, and we'll have that fixed in about 2 seconds. Woo, look at that. My mic just got excited. Yeah, I love live. That's why we do this the way we do this. No, how are you, sir, on this Friday?
Doing good, doing good. I'm excited to share a little bit.
Excellent.
What I've been doing and whatnot. Any little bit that could help people.
Yeah, and we already see Gary Cramer's over here. I've got multiple monitors going, so I'm trying to make sure that I watch everything, guys. I'm filming in the back for behind the scenes to come out with different videos during the week, just so you guys know. We are 9 days down, 9 days away from Google exploding, and if you aren't able to access websites on cell phones, everything is going to crash. They've already said they're going to start burning large cities to the ground. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, the world's pretty much coming to an end.
According to the algo updates, and you know, Byron and I in the past have talked about the fact that it's been this way for a while. They're just making a bigger hit on it. You know, they were because everybody's on their cell phones. Everybody is mobile ready, and they just want it to be mobile friendly. And it goes back to what they said when they started Google in college. Give the people what they want, how they want it, make it valuable to them, and everybody makes money. And I think you'll agree that's just another aspect of this thing.
Right. I mean, it's always been that way. That's never really changed.
Which comes up to this: when you look at themes for WordPress or even like HTML, I don't know how much you do with that. Is responsive important to you?
Recently, it has become just because in the past, what I was doing is I would have the regular website and then a mobile subdomain that I would redirect all mobile to. And basically, the mobile one would just be a simple little landing page. But, that took time doing a bunch of extra steps. And the way we work is just get out as many sites as possible, as fast as possible, blanket areas, take over terms and stuff like that. And having to do that extra step was just extra time. So now, getting the whole mobile responsive already integrated into the theme was huge, but it's also, we also needed to make sure that a lot of the offers that we work with, that were the offers themselves, were also mobile responsive, so that it would integrate with our websites. We do a lot of stuff with EDU lead generation, and for a long time, just a little widget that they gave us to input a zip code wasn't mobile responsive. So my sites were mobile responsive, but when a mobile browser was visiting it, they couldn't even see the area to input their zip code, so it was hurting us. But it seems like finally companies are starting to catch up and coming around. So a lot of the offers that we work with and everything are mobile responses from the get-go.
I thought it was just me for the longest time. I'd do a CPA offer and either as an overlay or whatever, and then I check it on my phone, and I'm like, I'm doing the pinch and pulls, and where is it, and and I'm like, whoa, what I break, and it's like, oh, I didn't break. It looks fine on my screen. It's just it's not set there, and oh, damn.
Well, I mean, you'd be surprised how many though are still, like, if you go through like Max Bounty, and so a lot of them, they have separate mobile offers, but it'd just be so much easier if the offer from the get-go could just identify if it was mobile traffic or not, so that you didn't have to worry about building only mobile sites and sending traffic to it. It could just be your main website, and you send traffic to it, and then they decide whether to show the mobile offer or not. But that's something that I've been kind of butting heads with the with reps over at Max Bounty. It's like, you got to make this mobile responsive so that 50% of my traffic now across all of my sites, 50% or more is mobile, and it only makes sense for the offers that we're sending them to be mobile as well.
Now, that brings up a cool question. Yeah, and sorry guys if you were wanting a lot of BS going on and talking. I've got the chance to talk to him, and I'm going to take up every opportunity I can. Very selfish, so I'll get to your questions over there in a minute. Do you only work with like one, like Max Bounty, or I went and signed up for, when I first started, everybody who would say yes. I was like, hey, and they're like, tell us about you, and I'm, I've got everything cut and paste, and I'm in there, and you'd swear to God I had 20 people doing CPA offers for the world because they're like, oh, your team is great, and I'm like, yeah, it's me. And I have no idea.
I try to find different, a few different ones to see which offer might convert a little bit better, because you'll notice that sometimes the networks themselves have the same exact offer, different payouts, but sometimes the conversion rates are also different. It could just be the same exact thing, but for one reason or another, they might have different ways that they gauge a conversion or something. But even though some of them might pay less, it converts better, so you end up making more money. So right now I've worked with Max Bounty, do a lot of stuff on Commission Junction, CJ, obviously AdSense. I've been big in AdSense ever since I started out. Some private companies that do stuff in the education vertical, like Campus Explorer and Quinn Street. So I work with a lot of different ones just to see what fits that particular niche, and that gives me options when it comes to building the sites, because I don't have to focus just on one particular niche. I can really spread out, and with Serp-Shaker, since I can hit anything on the local level, just gives me a ton of options whenever it comes to building the sites out and monetizing them. And a lot of times I'll just put up sites to test out, and it ends up getting traffic. So then I kind of have to do it backwards, and I have the site that's getting traffic. Now let me find what affiliate programs might be available for it. So yeah, it's just a matter of finding the ones. But then once we do find one that's converting and doing well, then we might focus a week or 2 weeks to really attacking that particular offer, that particular niche, in as many ways as possible, so that we can maximize that and then move on to the next one. I don't try to spread myself too thin to where we're hitting multiple niches at the same time. It's just we do a few, do some tests, whichever one kind of converts first or it's converting a little bit better, then we'll really kind of drill down, focus on that. And if we feel like we've kind of maxed it out, and if we put up another site, it's basically going to be an exact copy of a previous one, then we kind of try to find some new things to do.
I think that's hilarious, because I know that I'll think of something, and I'll go over, and I'm a URL whore, so I'll just buy URLs. I'll just sit there and, this sounds good, and this sounds good. Okay, now how do I, my wife always says, okay, how do we monetize it? And I'm like, I don't know. I have a Spanish site that gets a lot of traffic, but I can't really AdSense it because it's not, nobody clicks. There's not really any, value on the AdSense part. And the CPA offers, I have no idea I know what they're kind of selling, but I have no idea how to speak Spanish. I live in Arizona and don't know how to speak Spanish, but it's kind of funny, and I will just go out and spread too thin, covering too many things, where you're going in and you're hitting it and you're waiting for it to either, implode or burn out or whatever, taking it for what you can and then moving on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what I've really, for the past 2 years, with the education market, that's what I did. With education, it just gave us an opportunity, because there was just so many verticals we could hit where we pretty much took every single vertical and just really, really drilled down into each specific education side of it. And now I'm at a point where, you know, I've got a really good network of sites, but I'm looking into, you know, okay, what other verticals can I hit? You know, I know that there's insurance. I know there's, you know, a lot of other stuff out there that are also looking for leads. So that's what we're trying to do. And at the same time, all of those sites, you immediately can put AdSense on them and start making money right away, because it's, you know, if they're looking for leads, a lot of times the CPC on those type of verticals are really high. So you can get $1 plus a click on those kind of verticals, and, you know, so you don't need that many clicks to make some good money on a daily basis.
It was funny because I know that you're really into the education portion, and the education system in Arizona just took a major hit in financing. The government just basically said, we're not subsidizing any more college education, and pulled all their funding. And all these schools went, oh no, we just lost 40% of our income, you know. And they're sending people around with these horrible flyers for the local community schools. And I was like, why are you guys not hitting YouTube ads, Google ads, you know, mobile ads? I'm like, I know a couple of guys who, you know, for a few $1,000 could really help you get things correct. And I was like, wow, I should really just hit the local market here, you know, because that's what they need. They need to sign up. They need the federal funding because the state funding's gone now. And I never even thought about it until, you know, you were talking about it a few times, and, you know, and you guys were all discussing that entire vertical, you know, and people are like, oh, insurance, and I'm like, I got to go against Geico, you know, and that's a pain when. But then, you know, we go after some of the weirdest things, and, you know, like YouTube ads, you know, I've been doing those for a few years, not really successfully selling like CPA offers, because what I always found was, as a video guy, is these CPA offers hated the videos, you know. And I had somebody tell me after I was sending clicks, they're like, you know, you're not getting paid on those. And I was like,
interesting.
why? And they're like, we specifically don't want video. And I was like, well, I didn't see that. And they're like, well, but we have that little thing that says, ask us if it's not mentioned. Okay, well, no, okay, we'll take that down. You know, and it was, and what's funny is I then switch over to this whole Patriot Act thing, you know, and these survivalists, and I'm putting up their videos and getting traffic, and the guy who made the video, you know, emails me and goes, how did you get 30,000 views? You know, and I'm like, well, I SEO'd the hell out of it, and I know what to do. And he was like, dude, that's incredible. You're going to get some money for that one. I was like, sweet, you know. But dog insurance and stuff like that don't really work in the YouTube field too much. Let's see. Gary Cramer's already got jokes about me playing with my mic. He says he has a question. After he built out an SS site that is indexing 180,000 in Google, if I just want to put a link to another site in one particular post, is that going to look to Google like a linked site just got 180,000 backlinks, or will it just show as coming from that one post?
It should just be that one post. I mean, if you're not editing all 180,000 posts, then yeah, it's just going to be that one post. It might show up a couple times because, you know, you've got tags, you got the category, so each of those are probably indexed and they will count as a separate link, but definitely it won't be all 180,000. It's when you have the same exact backlink on all posts that I could raise some flags, and, you know, you could definitely sync a site if you're, you know, doing that kind of stuff. You know, that's why whenever we link out to authority, we tend to do just Wikipedia or really just Wikipedia, because, you know, that's I think that could take it. You would think government type sites would be okay too, because they usually don't have like an SEO team that's gonna disavow your links or anything like that. But for the most part, if you just do an authority link to Wikipedia, you're gonna be okay on that end.
That's I was gonna ask you about the government sites, because I know that years ago I was doing research on different things, and if you dig deep enough into these government programs, they'll actually have like a PDF that covers a subject, elder care, pills,
Right.
and safety things, and you used to be able to link to something like that. Not that they're all around anymore, but they were real low traffic pages. I mean, you had to dig, probably for days in order to find those little free booklets and forms.
Hmm.
Do you think that that is not as powerful as like a wiki?
I really just focus on putting something that's somewhat relevant. I don't think, I honestly, a lot of my sites don't even have an outbound link, and they do just fine. So I don't think that there's that much power to it anymore as there was maybe a few years ago. So a lot of times we don't even bother with an outbound link, but um, it's just as long as it's somewhat related to the subject. And the one thing that I do, that I actually learned from Don, was that don't use the keywords you're trying to rank for as the anchor text for that, because then you're giving that authority to that already authority link. Keep that for yourself. Just use random. It could just be like A, just something random that ends up getting hyperlinked. But Google will be able to see the relevance there to your subject, and so that, and then it will apply it there. But like I said, a lot of times lately I would say in my builds, maybe about 20% of the time we're actually linking out. The rest of the time it's there's no link outs whatsoever.
Oh, that's it says, look behind Andreas. I see a mattress. Is he expecting a mob hit? I don't think that's a mattress. It looks kind of like a really plushy headboard.
Yeah, no, that where I'm in my home office is in my master bedroom here. So
That's so you don't hurt your head when you lean back and you get smacked. No, it was funny, but we were talking probably 6 months ago about commenting on other sites and things. And like, if I go out and I'm commenting about video marketing, I use my name and I'll make a comment, and it's no big deal. And I've got my site, and I'm doing maybe 2 comments a day, no big deal. But when I was doing massive comments, and everybody's like, "Oh, make sure you use your keyword, and long tail keyword," and I'm like, as a site owner, if I see a comment from 1988 Jaguar XJ6 insurance quotes, it's probably spam, But the ones that always got through were the names. I didn't care about what website they're from. I knew what they were doing. It was just this name, and I loved when you get the spin content that comes through as a comment because they didn't do it right. And it's like, really, guys, test that before you send it out into a mass blast. You're gonna get nailed. Let's see. What is this chat thing? No follows. Yeah, Greg. No okay, I guess he's saying any of your outbounds, are they no follow?
no, I don't even. I just put a link.
Yeah.
Like that. A lot of what we do is we don't really, we're not focused on everything being perfect. We like speed, just quick. That's why I just made Serp-Shaker even faster than it was before, because I'm all about just getting the sites out there. That's the most important thing to me, is just get the sites out there. So whenever I insert a hyperlink in WordPress, I just highlight the word, hyperlink it, put in the URL and move on to the next one. I may not do things as perfect that some other people. I know some people that spent hours crafting the article and spinning it and making sure that it's perfect. I just grab a crappy article, put in the city tags, put in an actual tag, make a category, put in an image, and boom, move on to the next one, move on to the next one. And that's really what's been the major key to our success, is that I'm constantly just running through them and put out more and more sites, because I figured that out early on, that it was just so important that that cumulative effect of having a network of sites earning day in and day out was what really made a difference. You know, when I had one or two sites, yeah, it was cool to see, you know, a couple dollars here and there, and you know, they were making good. But it wasn't until I started really adding on sites, and then I ended up with, you know, about 30 or 40 winners, you know, that were making good money every day. Then I was like, whoa, you know, this is some really good money, really good traffic. You know, I can definitely do this for a living, you know, full time, like long term.
And you hit two things that are like super cool for me. One, I get bored real freaking easy. So when I'm putting up one of these sites, you know, I hated going and looking for a video. You dropped in the YouTube portion into it, and I was like, win. And, you know, and now I'm like going and getting the embeds for the map. You put that in. I went, super. Now, you know, you're just cutting out all my work for me. And I'm like, you know, I'm not sitting there making sure that I've got a 99.9% spin. You know, hell, half the time I wasn't even doing it. I didn't even care if I was getting dupe content, just because a few names and things were changing because of the city state, you know, or how I was putting out a couple of keywords. That was enough for me. I figured if I put in more than 2 hours, I was killing myself. Because I didn't know if it was going to last a week, a day, or, you know, a month.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to work. You know, if you really want to push Serp-Shaker style sites, and that's going to be your main focus, you know, you got to get it down to where your build process is 30 minutes. You know, I can literally sit down, get a site going in 15, 20 minutes, and move on to the next one. The key to that is having a good, what I call my skeleton setup. Using something like Backup Buddy or something. Basically, I would go in, set up the whole site, looks and everything, you know, the theme that I want, the plugins that I normally use, all my shortcodes that I always use, because I always use the same list of shortcodes. You know, I'm always hitting the whole United States with every single one of my builds. So I get that all set up right up to the point where I'm going to add this Shaker page, and then using something like Backup Buddy, I'll take a clone of it so that I can always have that ready. And when I'm going to deploy my next one, I can just deploy that clone and be set to go. Just add my Shaker page, hit build, move on to the next one. And that really cuts down the time of building these sites out. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason to worry about crafting it and even worrying about the spinning or the duplicate content of it, because I mean, the way I looked at it, and you know, the way I've analyzed it over the past couple of years, and I've kind of figured out that, you know, maybe this is what's happening. You know, we never know with Google, but look at like local directories, you know, like Yelp and insider pages and all those. All they really have to go off of is the business name, address, and phone number. That's all the content that they're really putting out there. Now, if Google was really concerned with duplicate content on the local level, then all those directories will be wiped out, because it's the same exact business name, phone number, and address across many, many, many websites. But yet, for some reason, they don't, you know, get hit with any kind of penalties. They actually rank really well on the local level type stuff, you know, local type queries. So I think that that's what kind of happens with our sites, is we kind of get kind of bundled in there with these local type directories, even though most of my sites are not set up as a directory. You know, they have a full post content and all that. And it's not like I'm listing any business information, although I am doing some testing with, you know, like pulling stuff from APIs like Yelp and CityGrid and all those different ones. Just doing some tests and see if that even helps or not. But yeah, that's what I think is happening to our sites, that we can get away with literally taking an article from Easing Articles, dropping a few city tags here and there. You know, we add the weather, the map, a few extra little things to make it somewhat unique. But other than that, it's an exact replica of that same article from Easing Articles.
I stole one of your little ideas, and, you know, pulling a couple little parts from a couple of different other ones and mashing them. And I said, that is the greatest thing in the world. Now that saves me a ton. I'm copying this piece, putting it over into a text file, and then it goes in, you know, and then once I've got, I don't even know how many words. One time I did it and I wasn't paying attention. I ended up with like 3,700 words of an article, and I was like, okay, way too many. It was like, this thing will take all day to do. So being able to do all these quick things and putting up a site in 30, and by the way, I'm sure by the end of this, somebody's going to offer to buy your skeleton site zip file. We're starting that at $97. By the end of this show, it'll probably be about $4.97, but it'll save you time. You had training. I know you had an email out, and it was for a couple of hours of training on the process of doing this. Right. And I know that I was on the fence because I had so much going on, and I'm like, how many of these am I putting up? And so I backed out of it. But I thought, holy smokes, and then, you get an email back that says, okay, we're full, guys. Maybe, after we're done, we'll do this again. And I was like, holy crap. I'll say anybody who didn't. Now, was that your sister who was teaching? Or
we tag teamed it. There was a few. I took on a few sessions. She did a few sessions. Now she does the vast majority of the site building for me, any new builds that we do. Just because I pretty much broke the process down into like a recipe. Do this, do this, do this. So anybody could really take on. It's just that we decided to work together. So she does a lot of my builds. And I, what I do for the most part is do testing to find out new niches. So, while she goes after the sure hits, the ones that are, making much money. I do the builds, the experimental ones, to see what new markets we're going to hit, and then I create, a new skeleton set up for that particular market, and, get all that done, so that then when I'm ready to really hit it in mass, she can just go and, repeat the same process. Because for every one of our builds, no matter what monetization method we're doing, they're all exactly the same. So when we did that one-on-one training, we focused solely on AdSense because, in my opinion, it's the easiest way to make your first dollar online, really. I mean, you could put up a site and within a week already made $1, $2 click off of it, and within a matter of weeks after that have the domain paid for, and then you've got residual income for the rest of that website's life, really. So it's, at that aspect of it, I think it's so cool that you can, when you've tried so many different things and you hear randomly put up, could be the crappiest site ever, and all of a sudden it's getting AdSense click, you're making money. And that's really what a lot of people are looking for, is to make that, to find something that they can make money with. And the cool thing about it is you put in the effort once, and then the website just keeps on bringing money, keeps on bringing money. You don't have to worry about it. So it really scalable at that point. But we focused.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying we focused on AdSense just because it was so easy. But when we were doing the training, I was telling people, like, what I'm showing you, all you have to do is just instead of AdSense code, swap in any other kind of offer. It's the same exact setup. It's just however you choose to monetize it. I see AdSense almost as a stepping stone. You start making good money with AdSense. And then once you got a good base under you, you can explore other options out there, or see if there's even better ways to make money from your websites. There might be like an affiliate program or something available that ties right in with that niche. But it's definitely a great way to just get that freedom. When you have the same, when you can figure out that, okay, I have $30 coming in a day, so that at the end of the month you're going to get $900. It's just a sense of relief to know that, I could wake up tomorrow, stay in bed all day, and I'm still going to get $30.
That's a car payment, for a lot of people. For some, that's rent, mortgage, groceries, however you want to break it down. I'm kind of a simple Simon. When I looked at my wife and I show her my phone, and she's like, okay, great, you made 17 cents. Woohoo, okay, now tell me when you're making, a minimum of 100. So the one day I was looking and I threw her the phone, and she's like, that's what you made today? And I went, yeah. She goes, I hate you. That's more than I made today, and it took me 8 years of college. And I went, and then, you've got guys like Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's sleeping right now because he even said, he goes, yeah, I'll catch the replay. And he's posting up another good day, and that is just it's a push for me, because then I'm going, okay, Dallas, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you. It's like, oh, come on. But you know, he had to have
It's a
started.
snowball effect, though. It's a snowball effect. You know, he started when we launched the plugin, and you know, he got a few sites under his belt. He's got a team of guys, you know, working for him. But you know, it's just a snowball effect. Like I said, you know, once you start getting that network of sites, you know, some are going to be losers, but you're going to have those few winners that kind of sneak in there, and they start adding up. You know, the more sites you put out, the more of a chance that you're going to get one of those winners, and it's just going to add up, and they keep on growing. Especially if your niches happen to be seasonal. You know, one of the guys that I talked to, Todd, his websites happen to be seasonal, and right now he's banking from, you know, his spring type sites.
That's something we don't get the chance to do, like local snow issues here in Arizona. So you know, our seasons are, you know, it's sunshine. But one of the niches, you know, that people all went after here in Arizona was like solar or air conditioning. Now what they figured out was it is the most saturated market. I'm warning everybody, stay out of Arizona for air conditioning and heating, okay? I run my AC in December, and I have a guy on speed dial, and he doesn't even advertise. It's a killer market. But one of the things that is growing here are sunshades for the windows, you know, and security, because half of our people, I'm exaggerating, but we have all the snowbirds that come down here during the winter from like Canada, but then when the summer comes, they're back in Canada. So they need the security that nobody can just randomly break into their house. So security systems and these sunshade blocks and window security systems, I'm like, why aren't more people selling those? You know, there's like 5 dealers here that would pay for a ton of money to get those clients. And I'm like, yeah, so everybody I know, I just gave you a niche. I'm not in it, so go for it.
You gave me 20 new website AdSense ideas.
Well, and it's funny. We have 3 local channels for the news, and because our people here are typically over 50. All they do are like local shows, you know, and they'll have this thing called House Hunters here in town, and they just talk to all these service companies, and these service companies pay like $1,000 to come on this show and talk for 2 minutes, you know, and I'm like, right. All I do is I watch it and I write down the name of the business, and when they're done, I shoot them off an email and I go, hey, I watched you on there. I know what you're paying for it. I'd love to work with you and get you some leads. And they go, well, well, I took over the pest control for a while, and Orkin ended up buying my websites because I hit every small city, and they were paying for the ads, but I was sitting at the #1 spot. And it was a Serp-Shaker-like site. It was the old LPN or LPN. That's what I started off with. And Orkin came in and said, dude, we just want you gone. And now they took it and they burned it. I mean, they just took it just killed it off the URL. And I was like, well, why didn't you guys keep it? You know, build the
They'd rather pay for the ads.
Yeah, and they were, and I, you know, it was a nice little payout. My wife's like, that little thing that took you like 3 hours to do? And I'm like, hey, I didn't even know what I was doing. You know, but I was the pest guy for every small, no-name town. Here's
that's how it all started, really, with Local Pages Ninja, which was the first version before Serp-Shaker. It was more geared towards, you know, taking over your local area, because back then I worked a lot with service businesses, a lot with carpet cleaners. And that was, you know, it came out of a need, as you know, they didn't want to rank for one city, they want to rank for their service area. So, you know, I came up with the idea of local pages, and, you know, how the developer do it so that I could easily, you know, blanket a local area. But that's where it all started. It's just that I started toying around with the idea. I'm like, okay, if I'm doing this well and with 100 cities, you know, let me try 300, then let me try 1,000. And, you know, it started growing, but, you know, obviously the code had to evolve, because, you know, now we do 40,000 at a pop, you know, 40,000 cities in one run. So we had to definitely make some changes, because wouldn't have worked, back then with that same plugin. And I mean, but I've got guys now that are hitting 200,000 posts in one build, 200, 300,000 posts, and it's just insane what they've been able to do with it.
I think I've cranked on my one test site that I did, and literally it was to test the server and see, what happens when this thing says timeout. I think we're at 500,000 pages, and it's literally every city and every part of a car. So it's oil pan gasket, and then every city. And it was just to see what is the server going to do, because I saw a lot of people saying, well, it's crashing, it's shutting down, and I was like, well, when mine says that it timed out, when I refresh,
it keeps going.
I've got 5, 10, 15,000. I went to sleep, woke up, and I went from 50,000 to 175,000 pages, and I went, whoa. Now, I'm not doing anything with that, but it was just how much, how much can I get done faster, and how ridiculous are these searches. And, when you're getting 4,000 or 5,000 people coming to your site every day, you should be able to monetize it, even with AdSense.
Right. Even if the ads are not relevant, even if it's those ads that happen to show up because they visited something before they come to your site, you're still gonna make money off of that when you've got a heavy traffic site. Right.
No, and that's super. Kevin BigHappy's here. How you doing, Kevin? I love you, man. You're you're a beast, brother. Let's see. Is there a good way to use SS to provide backlinks to a non-SS site? Like, can you use Serp-Shaker to boost another site, or is this not recommended? Maybe just a link from the home page of the SS site? That, I would think that'd be like a bunch of backlinks from one domain.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just the homepage if you're going to do something like that. Like, let's say you happen to have, like a high PR, or not PR, but a high authority, because I know PR is not important anymore. But you have one of those high authority domains with DA and PA, and you want to use it, I guess, almost as a scheme of a PBN. Then yeah, I would guess like a link from the homepage, but definitely not from the post themselves. That's just overkill. I personally can't say what you would experience out of it, because I do zero linking to my sites, linking to other sites. I don't rely on backlinks whatsoever. So yeah, I have no idea with that. But if you're gonna do it, just either pick a particular post or pick just the homepage. Definitely no sidebar or footer links or anything like that. That's gonna be site-wide, because that would definitely be overkill.
I could just imagine Serp site just building out, and all of a sudden it's just blowing up backlinks. So you don't backlink, so you don't GSA and all of this of old school SEO voodoo to even your shake sites?
Nothing. I build them out, and naturally, whatever rankings come, that's what we leave it at. We don't try to make it rank any better. If for some reason it tanked, we just put up another site in the same niche, use a different article. A lot of times it could just be the article itself. Maybe it didn't have the right keyword density or anything. Google just didn't like it for whatever reason. We don't try to figure out why. In the same amount of time that we're sitting there examining why this happened, we have already put up 2 or 3 new sites, and one of those 2 or 3 is gonna, do good. So it's just a matter of just, keep the ball rolling.
Now, another thing is do you spend hours on domain auction listings looking for the PR, the DA, the PA, the IBS, the everything else, or do you just say F it, and if it's available in GoDaddy, grab it?
Right. That's really what we just a lot of times buy brand new domains right off of Namecheap or whatever. Did some testing with higher authority type domains, but it wasn't conclusive enough to warrant the extra expense for them, because even if you go through a broker, you end up paying the finder's fee, which is anywhere from $10 to $60, and then the registration fee on top of it. Or if back then we also did some drop catching, which was at least $69 a domain. So it was just, not worth it for considering that, we've gotten such good results with just brand new domains, keyword-rich domains, not necessarily exact match, because nowadays you're not going to find exact match for the most part, at least for the good type keywords, but just something that was somewhat relevant. If we're doing lawn service, in the city or something, then we try to get lawn service somewhere in the domain, and that's it. Or sometimes we've had some sites that the domain name has zero relevancy to the niche, and they still do good. So it's just I don't see the domain name being that important, because we're going after the long tail, the local long tail, and the post URL, the post slug itself. That's what's really causing the ranking. So that's where you're going to be getting your keywords and stuff in. So even if the domain name has zero to do with the niche, you still have a good chance of it being okay.
That is, I think that's really important. Do you think that most people just really overthink this whole thing?
Definitely. There's definitely a lot of overthinking, especially when we first launched it. I mean, you could see that a lot of the questions and a lot of stuff that we got in support was just a lot of overthinking, a lot of what if I do this, what if I do that, what happens if I do this, where it really just comes down to testing. I have a lot of answers because I've honestly, I've been doing it for so long. So a lot of times when you bring something up, I'm going to be able to say, yeah, we tested this and this is what happened, or, we haven't really done it that way. But there's also a lot of other things that people can come up with, and it's just a matter of, it's so quick, just get a site out there, test it out. If you got a certain theory in your head, don't necessarily wait for an answer from me or from the group. Just test it out. I mean, a domain name is what? $10. So if anything, it ends up being a complete dud, you'll probably end up making those $10 back from just dropping AdSense in there. So, all you've wasted at that point is just your time, which is not really wasting time, because then you figured out that that doesn't really work and you have concrete evidence. You're not going based off of what someone else says. And that's how I started this whole thing is, at that time, everybody's like, no, duplicate content, no way, that's never going to work. I'm like, let me test it out, let me see if that truly is the case. And I've always been that way, you got some SEO guru saying you can't do this, I'm going to go the complete opposite way and just test it out and form my own opinion. There's some guys out there saying that to not use tags on WordPress posts, that tags are horrible, duplicate content, never use tags. Tags amount for a major part of my traffic. So, I don't know what they're doing with their tags, but the way I use tags, they bring traffic in. Those tag pages get indexed, they rank, and they bring traffic in.
Well, and that's funny because my question, I saw the same thing of don't use tags. And somebody came out and said, well, Google hates tags. And I went, well, can you tell YouTube that? Because that's what Google reads to rank you into these sections, and they're telling you what it's about, and that the first thing they say is, you've got 500 characters for your tags. Now tell us what is this video about? Even if you don't have a description, I take the title of a video, drop it in the description, and then fill up the tags, and I'm ranking. And my same thought was, it should be the same for WordPress. Now, I don't put in 50 tags, but I use the spin, when I'm building it, and a couple of different variations of it. But yeah, I'm always trying to see what's going to break what. Duplicate content, I call BS on that, and I have for a long time, because it goes down to the Associated Press. The Associated Press releases an article, and every news station in the world takes that exact article without changing anything and says, Associated Press, here's the article, and they all, especially locally, rank for that article. It's like you all your news stations just flow in right off your page. So I think that when somebody says, well, if this isn't going to work, you got to try it first. And one, I'm not running to you because it may be a niche that I want. but it also may be a niche that you're already in, and not saying you, but other people, and they're going, no, 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 that don't work, because they're protecting their butts, and I'm going, no, let's just play with this and blow it up, you know. I love GoDaddy because I'm into their bulk buying program, so you know my URLs are $8.
Okay.
Just, you know, and that's, you know, whatever I buy, so I'm always in there and they're not exact match, but, you know, I've gotten, I have one that's YYLLXXZZ.com. I picked it up off a kid for $5, you know, and it was like, oh, okay, I like the short little crazy things. It's bringing in about $50 a month for the niche, you know, it doesn't matter, I don't think. What do we think about the upcoming doorway page update? The update's old, guys. The doorway page was, I think I found the earliest doorway gateway conversation was 2006 or 2008. One of those was
I think 2006.
And that was the first conversation about we don't want you doing that. And it was based off of deception. That was their original thinking. Person's coming for this, yeah, and then they're getting something completely different that they weren't, you know. And I think that had to tie in with like porn, you know, because people were redirecting to their porn channels and making $50. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think it really, you know, a lot of it still applies to the cloaking mentality, you know, like, but the way they see it is you build these massive sites almost in the style of Serp-Shaker, but with Serp-Shaker you actually have a post there. You actually have a post with content around that local area, whereas these sites, you know, they might just have the URL that happens to get indexed, but whenever somebody lands on it, you know, they're going to a completely different thing, nothing to do with the city. Nothing to do with anything. It's just, you know, whatever they want to drive that traffic to. And they're also doing it in a way where the search engines get one result and human visitors get another result. You see it a lot in the payday loan industry. That's if you want to see what I think what they're referring to with the doorway pages and redirecting. Just do a payday loan search in your city, and you'll see that out of the 10 results, I would say like 6 of them are some kind of gateway page where it redirects you somewhere else or it redirects you straight to the offer. You know, and one of the things that I've told people is, you know, to protect yourself, get away from needing the overlay plugins and just making the conversion right on the post. And I know it's a little bit harder, but if you can manipulate some themes to where the post itself looks almost like a home page. So if you're doing things for local businesses, you know, they land right on the post themselves, and you know, you make it look like a nice home page that's set to convert. You know, that's going to work well. And if you can't find that, just look for a developer. You know, for about, I would say maybe like $500, you can get a developer to make you a nice theme that the post itself will look like, you know, whatever home page, and you just have to specify, you know, specifically what you want. But that's the route that I've been going anyways, is that, you know, I make my posts themselves try to seem as, you know, resemble a home page whenever I'm doing things, you know, for pay-per-call and that type of scenario. Is, you know, I want that conversion to happen right on the post itself. I'm not going to redirect it somewhere else. I'm not going to overlay any kind of offer. It happens right there, right then and there. Where, you know, with my other sites with the education leads, you know, the conversion happens right on the page. Adsense, obviously, you know, right on the post itself. They're clicking on the ads. So I think that's the important part of it, you know, moving forward to kind of protect yourself. But like you said, I feel like it was almost an announcement just to kind of scare, you know, doing their little scare tactics. Because they normally whenever they announce things is after they roll things out. This one was, you know, an announcement that we're going to roll this out. So, you know, the way I feel like they try to do things is like, okay, this kind of strategy seems to be working a little bit. You know, they're gaming us a little bit. Let's just put it out there. Then you're gonna get all these people running for the hills, and we don't even have to release an update. It's just, you know, you got a lot of people not even worrying about it anymore. But, you know, time will tell. We'll see. You know, if they do end up rolling something that will affect us in a little bit, you know, you can be sure that you know, I'll be finding out a a way around it, because this is my money maker. This is how, I don't make money from selling Serp-Shaker, or the bulk of my money. The bulk of my money is from my actual websites and what I do with them. So that's, if something happens to that, that's my livelihood, and I'm gonna find out a way to go around that. There's always it's a game, and it's just a matter of we're playing the game, we're playing Google's game, and it's just a matter of finding how to bend the rules a little bit.
I loved it. Andrew from SimEasy and I were talking one day, and we came to the conclusion it's like when you were growing up and your mom said, "Is your room clean?" "Yeah." "Is your room clean?" "Yeah." "I'm going to go check." And you ran up the stairs or ran down the hallway and you cleaned it up real quick. And that's what I think.
Under the bed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what Google does. They make these announcements, and anybody who's not, hardcore SEO or, is making enough money in it or, are just nervous Nellies, instantly go and, change something, and they go, "Look, you policed yourself." Now they stop doing that, so now they're not gaming it. I have a site that makes good money off an affiliate offer that is a doorway. The content underneath is about webinars, but the overlay shoots them to an affiliate offer for webinars. But if I got manually searched, they would be like, "Oh, hell no, we're taking you away." I'd be shut down in a heartbeat. I'm going to sneeze, so everybody just deal with it. Serp-Shakers on son of a gun, oh gun. I wish it would just come out. Excuse me. And somebody better say bless me on that page. What's your experience with Serp-Shakers on subdomains?
Good. I've had good experience. I haven't done subdomains as much as I should, just because we had such a large base of domains that we purchased in bulk when we were doing stuff with education. But I'm definitely gonna, it's just another way to kind of squeeze more money out of that. Get more of those $10 you initially purchase, because you can put on 5 to 10 subdomains, and more than likely, they're going to do pretty well. Some of them are going to be complete duds. They're never going to index, or they're not going to index as well. They definitely, in my experience, index a little slower sometimes, especially if you do rapid indexing and you hit the first one with the main domain with rapid indexing, and then any subdomains, and after that you try to do any kind of rapid indexing, it definitely doesn't react as quick. And I feel because Google already somewhat has a reference that, okay, we've already been to that domain name, so yeah, we received your sitemap, but your video sitemap, but we're not going to be there as quickly as we were the first time around. Maybe they also know that the first time we kind of duped them into thinking that there really was a video sitemap with some of the rapid indexers. I know that Index Assault, you have legitimate videos and a legitimate sitemap, but with some of the other services, it's more just tricking Google into thinking that there's videos on there. But no, they definitely they work. There's definitely no reason why I would say not to do it. And I've used both subdomains and subdirectories, and they've worked just as well. The subdirectories I use more with the authority domains, because subdomain is kind of treated as its own little entity, its own website, whereas a subdirectory is seen as part of the main URL itself. So you get some of that DA, PA type juice, that power passed on to the subdirectory, even though I'm not linking to it from the main domain or anything like that. Just the fact that it's associated with the main domain tends to give it some extra power.
Now, would you do like a subdirectory, like if you were doing, I guess like for lack of a better thing, like Herbalife, and you've got this local, vitamin thing going, but that they have like a secondary product. Would you then do Serp-Shake pages in the different directories for their different products? Or maybe even like Tupperware, where you've got, square bowls, you got round bowls, and, you're just breaking up.
I probably hit them all under the same one. I've used completely like disassociated subdirectories. Like I had one site that was really strong metrics. So then in one subdirectory I did things like auto accident, and then the next subdirectory was something about schools, and then another subdirectory lawn service. So they were all over the place, and each one ended up doing good. So I had no theming or anything whatsoever. It was just, whatever I wanted to build at that time. And I think I finally hit the, I tried another subdirectory recently on it. It didn't do as well, so I'm like, okay, maybe I've used up too much of the subdirectory power there. But and just so people know what subdirectory is compared to subdomain. Subdomain is when you got like web.website.com. That's a subdomain. Whereas subdirectory, it's website.com/whatever folder name, and that's where you end up installing WordPress. Nothing complicated about it. It's just when you go to install WordPress, don't install it on the root. Just install it inside a folder, and that's really all there is to it.
And that blows you. You mentioned rapid indexing, and I knew there was going to be a question, but somebody said, what do you think about rapid indexing? I'll say this. I poked my site once. I use one tool, other people use other tools, and there's index assault, and there's all these other things. I literally just ping it just so somebody visits, but I don't sit there and worry about like a backlink indexer or all these other things. Like you said, you don't backlink to them. I might put a post on Facebook, and that's about it.
I still use rapid indexing, but not like most people do. I literally only drop like maybe 5 URLs or so to the same idea, just to get it somewhat noticed. Right. Now I did start using backlinks indexer on my sites, but the idea behind that was like I wasn't trying to get like each because to get each individual post index, you'd have to I have to send a list of 40,000 URLs to backlinks indexer, and I would end up at their $1,000 a month plan or something like that. My idea with it was just to give it a little extra juice, to the site itself, because since I do not backlink whatsoever, I just wanted to test it out. I like I said, everything that that I see, I test it. I don't try to wonder what if or what's going to happen. I just test it just to see what happens. And when we first launched Serp-Shaker, I had Dan, the main guy, Dan and Matt, the main guys behind Backlinks Indexer. He was like, hey, I think this would be a good fit with your Serp-Shaker type sites. Try it out. And I did. I put it in a few sites. Didn't really think much of it. But when I looked at my stats, as far as how quickly they were growing in rankings and traffic daily, it seems that it gave them a little bit of an edge. So that's what I what I do with my sites. But then again, it's still very minimal. I have it set 10 posts a day, just slow drip feed, nothing crazy, because I'm not trying to get all this, all the post index. That's going to happen naturally, or anything, all that stuff is going to happen naturally. It just gives it a little extra juice to its individual post, and which I'm hoping trickles down to the whole authority of the domain itself.
Now, do you get the dreaded email that says that you've been manually reviewed by Google?
Well, I don't put any of my sites on Webmaster Tools, so I'm assuming there's been a few sites where it's happened, where they put a spam action against it. But I think for the most part, my sites have been okay, because usually when they do a manual thing like that, they fully de-index the domain. From my understanding, is that the ones that I've seen where I've had some that were aged domains that I bought just never get indexed, and so finally I would drop them into Webmaster Tools, and I get the the notice in there. And whenever it's a manual spam penalty, the whole site's just completely de-indexed. Where I've never experienced any de-indexing on any of my domains, other than the stuff that I had set up as PBNs. But I've never experienced any de-indexing, so I don't think that I've gotten any of those spam penalties. Now I have I have sites that will be ranking and getting traffic daily, and all of a sudden drop out completely for a month. So I think they get some kind of one of those -50 penalties or something, to where you could be ranking on the first page, and all of a sudden they sent you to 5 pages deep. But those are also lifted magically. You know, I don't know if they do some kind of voodoo power or whatever, but I had a site that was getting 400 or 500 visits a day, and then all of a sudden in September last year went to like 10 a day. And all of September, 10, 20 a day, 20, 10 a day. Soon as October 1st hit, it went back up to 400 or 500. So some kind of penalty or something happened, and then it was magically lifted. I didn't change anything whatsoever to the site, and it just bounced back. So you'll see that a lot of times where they'll completely disappear and then they'll bounce right back, and that's why it goes back to what I said originally. The power of the network of your sites is if I have one site go down, I'm not going to cry about it. I've got other sites to back it up.
I also think that maybe that's Google's way of trying to figure out if we're building up a long-term asset or if we're going to freak out. If it's de-indexed, I'll take it off the server, just throw the name away and just let it die. But if it's sitting there and you're not doing anything to adjust it, they go, oh, okay, well, they meant to build it like this. I don't know. I have no proof of it. But for something to disappear and then come back and you didn't make adjustments to it, I haven't. I don't even know. What are you using for analytics to know what is working and what's not working, or how much traffic you're getting and things?
I used Piwik on all my sites. I've got I think I shared it with the Serp-Shaker group, but basically it was just a little version I found it's an older version now because I have a newer one now, but it's an older version, but it allowed me to do something to their tracking code to where I could use the same exact tracking code on every single one of my websites, so that way I didn't have to go through and add it to the dashboard and then get the code and add it back to my websites, because once again it goes down to speed. That was just extra thing. It works just like analytics, Google Analytics, where their basic or their normal version, you have to add your website to the dashboard, and then they give you a specific code, and that's what you use to your website. Using the version that I have, I can just use the same exact code. So in my skeleton setup, that code's already in there, and any site that I deploy is immediately from day one going to be getting tracked. So then that way, we constantly put out sites. And I'm not even worried about the sites we put out. I'm just looking at my stats, and when I see a random site pop up that I haven't seen before, then I'm like, okay, this is one of our newer sites. This is one of our newer sites that is doing good. Let me check out the monetization, make sure we've got everything set up correctly, and that kind of stuff.
Looking. Byron mentioned there was the Panda refresh in October. Yes, there was. Have you used Mixpanel
What's
at
that?
all? It's analytics. It's another company. I've noticed that there are some beta companies and stuff. If you go to the bottom of their page, you'll see a little logo that'll say like Mixpanel, and it does analytics, and it's more web-based. It just drops the code in, and then you can check in their dashboard. I'm testing it now on a couple of sites. We use it. If you look at the bottom of the SEO show, you'll see the Mixpanel analytics little bumper, and you click on it, and literally it's just traffic, and you can get in and do conversion codes and all that fun stuff. I'm not sure, because we just started out with it, how it is. I've used Piwik, whatever it is, for the longest, but like you said, it was such a tedious task. And then I heard that it was slow. It was heavy on page loads and things like that, and then people said new stat press and all these things. So there's a million ways to do it. Now, do you find that by not using Webmaster's tools and just using AdSense that there's a problem, or could be?
I don't think so. I've never run into anything. I'm a big fan of trying not to use too many Google products, especially with this type of site, because as legitimate as we try to make it, You know, if they're ever looked at it, you know, you get a manual review, they might not like it too much. The fact that we're, you know, targeting 40,000 cities with one website, they might look down on it a little bit. Not that I've ever had any sites with any kind of, you know, penalty or the index, like I said. But then again, you know, we just don't want to give them that extra edge of having webmaster tools or Google Analytics or anything in there. But with that being said, though, I do have a lot of sites that have had analytics in the past, and they're 100% fine. And the reason I put analytics is because the flipping company that I go through, the broker that I go through, requires those kind of stats. You know, they require Google Analytics stats, so I have to put it on there. And there's some sites that I thought about flipping and put them on analytics and never did end up flipping because they were doing just so good. I wanted to keep them to myself. But to this day, they're still okay, and they still have Google Analytics code on them. So that's just, you know, one of those things that people throw out that, you know, definitely stay away from it all. You know, it's the end all of everything, but it's just, you know, one of those things to test out. If it, you know, for me, I've never used webmaster tools, so I can't say much about that. But I have used analytics on some of my sites, and they seem to still be doing fine. But for the most part, I don't use it though, because I like having everything in one dashboard with Paywick, and that's just been built into our system for over a year and a half now. So it, you know, any new site, you know, it'd be hard to transition to something else because we have so much data in there already.
That's, man, I cannot believe how long this has been out. And you keep updating it, you know, and you and I have talked, and you're like, yeah, I got a new beta. It's like, what? You know, I'm so used to a plugin coming out, and it's just, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Well, you know, it's just one of those things where, like, you know, I tell people, like, a lot of these updates, selfishly, they're benefiting me. I just happen to release them out to the public so everybody else gets to take advantage of it. But if you notice that a lot of the shortcuts and everything, when you click on them, they're pre-filled in with a set of shortcodes, because that's how we set up our shortcode. So I can just click the button, hit OK, and, you know, if you use a different setup, then yeah, you're gonna have to switch that out or whatever. But the shortcuts and everything that we've done with the plugin has been to help our setup, our systems, and I just, you know, make them publicly available.
Okay, 2 questions, because, man, this hour's gone fast, and I really do appreciate you coming on. You said flipping. So you can flip these sites after you build them?
Oh yeah, I flipped a lot of them. I mean, if those a lot of those screenshots that you see now, is the echo because of me or?
No, it could be because of me. It could be me.
Okay. Yeah, I've flipped many sites as long as they have a year, they're aged for a year, and they have consistent earnings. You know, for the past 3-4 months. That's really what the website broker that I go through, which is Empire Flippers. I've used them a lot. But yeah, a lot of those screenshots from the Serp-Shaker sell page has been some of those large flips, and I've had people pay $40,000, $50,000 for a website on a flip, and it's, you know, it's a Serp-Shaker style website. They've been built with Serp-Shaker.
Can I build additional pages from time to time to show the site is active?
You can do that. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. We even just, with the beta version, we added a feature where, at least the way I'm testing it out, is we build out the whole site, you know, all 40,000 cities or whatever, and then we add on a new Shaker page, and then have it do maybe like 300 cities, but we use the future date feature. So it's going to, you know, future dated a year in advance, so that, you know, for the next year is going to get like a post or two just randomly. And that seems to, from what I've heard, the guys that are, you know, the ones that suggested the feature to me, because they were doing it in a manual sort of way, it just keeps the bots happy. Just keep on coming back, you know, just fresh content.
Yeah, even if it just appears, it'll just, you know, somebody comes up and a date's different and stuff. I definitely see that. And Greg Sinclair said, yeah, that with the beta he thinks it automatically does that. So yeah, is it too risky to host multiple sites on one host, since all the sites will be having the same IP and have the same name servers?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, you can use things like Cloudflare to mask the IP, which we do that a lot. But all of my sites are literally just on 2 servers. I have 2 dedicated servers. I filled one up, so moved on to the second one. But they're all they're on two dedicated servers, all with the same exact name servers, and some of them on Cloudflare, some of them not. Just and if you're using something like a BPS where they provide the name servers for you, then even better, because then you're going to be bundled in with a couple hundred other websites or 1,000 other websites in there.
You're using a dedicated server, so that could be anywhere from 200 sites to 900 sites on one server, and you're doing 40,000 pages, and you've got subdomain. Damn, man, you've got to have some traffic rolling in. Yeah, one of those pages or one of those bills I'm glad I don't have right now. Listen, what's the next greatest thing that's coming out that you're working on, or are you just sticking with Serp-Shaker?
I'm honestly just sticking with Serp-Shaker. I mean, right now, I've got Serp-Shaker to a point where I'm happy with it. The beta version eventually, I'll roll that out and make it the full update. Haven't gotten too many bug reports, so it seems like it's pretty stable. That's what I spent a lot of my time over the past couple months, is really making it as good as it can get, and I feel like we are there now. So now it's just a matter of me kind of going back into hiding a little bit and just working on my network and building up my my network of sites again. Because I flipped quite a few of them in the past year and a half. We adopted a baby, we bought a house, financed by my websites in a sense. All those flips that I did. So now it's just a matter of rebuilding and getting up to that point again where I could possibly flip some more and be comfortable.
I don't. Again, it's people say the internet lifestyle or the things like that, and I know that you're working it every day, so it's not like you just hit a niche and became a millionaire. I know that you work it, and I see your family photos and stuff, and I think that's like the coolest thing in the world, hanging out with your kids.
That's my lifestyle. That was that's the reason why I did it, to be able to have that family lifestyle. I may not drive the fancy cars. We have a nice house and all, but for us it's all about the kids and family. The same amount of money that we could be spending on a Lamborghini or whatever. You see some of the high-name marketers immediately jump to those kind of things. We have too many vans, but we definitely have a happy household.
And that's it, man. I'm happy with my Kia. We're happy with those 4 wheels going around town and everything. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I know we've talked about it for a few months, and now that we got you on here, I'm super pumped. Thank you. If you ever need anything, let us know, and we'll be wanting to go. Can you still even get the Serp-Shaker? Can you go and buy it?
Yeah, it's definitely still available. Serp-Shaker.com. The sales page sucks. I'll tell you that much. The sales page. We haven't done a great job of marketing it, and like I said, the bulk of my income doesn't come from selling products or creating products. That's why even this last plugin that I came out with, I just gave it away for free for whoever jumped on that BLI promotion, because I'm not that kind of marketer. I just provide it out there because I know that it's going to help people, but the bulk of my income comes from my site. So yeah, the sales page kind of sucks, but basically, it's still available at Serp-Shaker.com.
Well, you have a few thousand users, so the sales page can't suck that bad, Well,
the product speaks for itself, I think is what it is. People hear about it, they see that the results that they're getting, and yeah, so definitely. I think that's what's helped us out with that.
Grab the plugin, get over into the group, look at some of the results people are having. You got a question, ask. There are a ton of people who are just doing awesome with it, from servers to subdomains to everything else. everybody's got their opinion and everybody's got the answer, but that's where you'll get it. Again, thank you very much for stopping in. Guys, it is Friday. It is time to say goodbye. SEO Show, I'm Frank Schwartz. Thank you all. We'll see you next week, and we're out. And you notice I didn't swear that.